before the character to evolve. He had no issues with that at all. What do you think, Steve? Is Apu offensive? Do we need to move on from sort of these stereotyping accents? Will you miss the beloved character? What's your take?
As one who has dealt with accent mocking and accentism for most of his life, the sooner this gets binned, the better. I'm from the north of England. My accent is obviously the finest in the known universe. However, stop sniggering the pair. You see, this is exactly what I'm up against, right? But the moment I go down south in England, Coronation Street, shut up.
Right.
And you're from the north. Yeah, the north is a huge, great, big variety of things. And the same with this guy's Indian. Nobody knows what part of India he's from. He's from comic India. Accentism is a form of racism. It's a form of snobbery. It's a form of language classism, and I don't like it. When I lived in America, I would have my accent mocked by Americans, and not always in a "oh gee, your accent is so cute" kind of way. It was. I would have things repeated back to me, sort of a sing-song mocking English accent, or I would try saying something. "Go blimey, governor!" Shut up right now, please. Even in New Zealand, I get my accent mocked because I'm different. I don't sound like everybody around here.
So you're on board with this?
Very, very much so. I do not like punching down with accents because I've been on the receiving end of it for much of my life.
Ellie, what do you think?
I don't agree at all. I would actually say harden up, Steve. I think that if people are mocking an accent, and then that is mean and that is unfair. But I love doing accents or trying to do accents because...
Go on then, do mine.
No, I can't. I'd have to sit down and listen to it a lot to try and do it. It's hard. Yours is really hard to do, actually. But I
find it quite easy.
Yeah, well, of course you would, and I'm the one with the accent, you're going to say, aren't you? So, what programs like The Simpsons do is they satirise. They make all of the people in it caricatures of themselves. That's what satire is. And look at Homer. He's the central character. So will we sanitise the characters so there is no commentary? Look at what's happening now as a result of the conversation that we're having. And we need to start these conversations, and that's what satire does.
Steve?
No, but good satire punches up. When you're taking a minority who, I imagine the Indian community in the United States would consider themselves to be a somewhat marginalised community. When you're taking them and mocking the way they speak, the way they act, then you're punching down, and that's not good satire.
What about Gavin and Stacey?
That was done with an awful lot more affection, I suspect, than
I think you're putting your lens across it, though, and your appreciation and your sense of humour,
Yeah, but I will also say that in Gavin and Stacey, the Welsh characters were played by Welsh actors. In the case of Apu, he's being played by a white man.
Why does that matter?
Well, okay, if it was a live action show and a Indian character would be playing by a white actor, what would that look like? I think there's a word for that, isn't there?
But it's not. It's a cartoon. I really do. For example, I was looking...
linguistic blackface. It really is.
Linguistic blackface.
That's exactly
a phrase I've never heard before. What do you think,
It's a nice
Alan?
phrase, but no, it's absolute rubbish. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we should always go back into our history and things like that. But do you remember Billy Birmingham, the 12th man?
No.
You remember the cricket commentaries that he used to do in the 80s, 70s, well, the 80s and 90s? He used to take the mickey out of some of the Sri Lankan cricket players. Now, does that mean we can't listen and laugh to that anymore?
Are you the kind of person who explains to black people, oh, no, actually, that wasn't racist?
All right.
Because that's kind of how it feels right now.
Linguistic blackface. What an interesting phrase. You have both been fantastic. Steve McKay, Ellie Jones, thank you very much.
Love you, Steve.
Love you too, Ali. Thanks very
On
much.
the panel. See you tomorrow.
Te whakarongo mai koe ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa. This is Checkpoint on RNZ National. I'm Lisa Owen. E haere ake nei, the Whanau Ora face off. 5 prominent Māori wahine declare no confidence in the Whanau Ora minister and head to the Waitangi Tribunal. So is the government destroying the Māori-led program by stealth, or is someone playing politics here? The minister and one of the claimants front up to debate the issues. Northland farmers consider culling stock as the big dry continues. Australia beefs up airport screening for some flights from China, where hundreds of people are infected with a pneumonia-like virus. No early release for convicted drug smuggler Carol Schrubeck. Parole's denied for a 4th time. And who said rugby's a winter sport? The Super Rugby series kicks off next week. RNZ News at 5. Kia ora, ko Susana Leata with DNA. Eastern District Police have so far arrested 2 people in their investigation into 2 separate gang shootings over the weekend. Mongrel Mob and Black Power gang members fought in broad daylight in Taradale on Sunday afternoon, and 1 man received gunshot wounds. In Ruatoria on Saturday, shots were fired between people in cars and a person at a house. District Commander Tania Kura says there have been tensions for some time, but the exact cause is unknown.
Some of it's tit for tat, some of it's stuff that we will never know. In my experience, I'd say that there's drug dealing is a big part of it, and that there's the patch protection.
Superintendent Tania Kura, the police say while there is ongoing tension between the gangs, it's an overstatement to say it's a gang war. Children and adults 60 years and older are among 20 people injured after a bus rolled on Glenorchy Queenstown Road this afternoon. A St John Territory manager who was at the crash, David Belly, says 2 people are in a serious condition. Another person has moderate injuries and 17 others have minor injuries. All of them were out of the bus by the time emergency services arrived, but he says people were distressed.
As you understand, it's an emotionally a very charged scene, and with a number of people being involved, and it's quite a serious incident for all those involved.
David Belly of St John. Imperial Tobacco has announced a proposal to close its Petone factory, with 122 people set to lose their jobs. The potential closure of the factory is due to fewer people smoking cigarettes. Factory manager Karen Geddes says the announcement is regrettable. New Zealand has no plans to screen passengers arriving from China, despite the spread of a viral pneumonia. There are now more than 200 cases in China, and health authorities have confirmed the illness can spread from person to person. Chen Liu reports.
The coronavirus outbreak is spreading from Wuhan to other major cities in China. Direct flights from Wuhan to Sydney will be met by border security and biosecurity staff. New Zealand doesn't have direct flights from Wuhan. The Ministry of Health says there have been no cases here so far, and the World Health Organization hasn't advised any travel or border restrictions. Auckland Airport says it will act upon any advisory received from the authorities. Ko Chen Liu Aho.
Farmers in Northland are becoming increasingly concerned about water and stock feed levels as the region inches toward drought. Intense dry spells with no heavy rain forecast for the next few months are causing headaches for farmers. PGG Wrightson's Vaughan Vusic has told Checkpoint feed and water reserves are already starting to wane. He says dryness is an ongoing problem for Northland farmers, but this season has been particularly bad.
We worry every year. Look, I'm a farmer myself, but we worry every year about the dry and what the weather's going to, we're dictated to so much by the weather, but certainly this year seems to be, leading to, a stronger dry situation.
Vaughan Vusic. The Minister for Whanau Ora is denying claims money from an $80 million funding boost is going to other agencies. It comes as distinguished Māori leaders seek an urgent Waitangi Tribunal hearing over the government's handling of Whanau Ora funding. Peeni Henare says the 3 Whanau Ora commissioning agencies will receive $42 million from the fund, and the rest has been earmarked for new Whanau Ora initiatives.
But I can guarantee that none of the money has gone back into government coffers or government agencies.
Whanau Ora Minister Peeni Henare. A car fire in Homer Tunnel has closed off the only road to and from Milford Sound. The police say State Highway 94 was shut off after 2:45 this afternoon. A spokesperson says officers are assisting fire and emergency at the tunnel. It's not known how long it will remain closed. It's 4 minutes past 5. All Black flanker Adi Savia says it's been frustrating having to sit on the couch over Christmas and New Year as he recovers from a knee surgery, which has ruled him out of the bulk of Super Rugby competition. Savia suffered the injury during the World Cup semi-final loss to England and had surgery last month. He's back walking and can do some biking, but admits it's inhibited his social media activities.
I've been doing TikToks lately, and they require some dance moves, and I went into work the other day and my doc told me off. Walking down the stairs, you feel so confident, but then sometimes it catches a little bit, so just need to be careful.
Adi Salvere. Auckland's Mount Smart Stadium has hosted the Commonwealth Games, rugby league, football, bungee jumping and numerous concerts, and now the Rally of New Zealand. It was announced last year that New Zealand would return to the World Rally Championship, but today rally organisers confirmed 2 special stages will be held inside Mount Smart during the event, which will be held in September. Mount Smart will also be the service hub for teams and rally village for fans. It's 8 years since New Zealand last hosted a round of the WRC. Second seed Karolina Pliskova has enjoyed a straight sets win in her opening match at the Australian Tennis Open in Melbourne. Men's world number 1 and top seed Rafa Nadal is due on court shortly to begin his quest to equal Federer's record of 20 Grand Slam titles. And Wanaka free skier Hank Billouis has finished second at the Freeride World Tour event in Japan. That's the news.
A gang shootout in suburban Napier.
During the daytime when there are families out and about with their children, I can understand why our community is feeling on edge.
Fears the violence could spread.
In the days of social media, this gets amplified and suddenly we've got firefights happening all over the place.
And Kiwi go hungry in a drought.
Parts of Northland are really struggling with how hard the ground is. So the young birds, they physically can't probe the ground.
Hard news. Morning Report, weekdays from 6, on air and online.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland to Wellington, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, Central High Country and Wairarapa. Mainly fine. Areas of low cloud morning and night. Isolated showers this afternoon and evening about Bay of Plenty and for Taupo tomorrow. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay mostly cloudy but afternoon fine breaks. Bulla, Nelson and Marlborough mostly fine. Areas of cloud morning and evening, mainly near the coast. Westland mostly cloudy but afternoon fine breaks. Scattered rain developing south of the glaciers tomorrow evening. For Canterbury, mostly cloudy, but afternoon fine breaks. Fiordland, Otago and Southland, mainly fine today, apart from isolated showers inland. Patchy rain tomorrow. Chatham Islands, mostly cloudy, isolated showers today. RNZ National, it's 7 minutes past 5. Thanks, Susanna. And this is Checkpoint. I'm Lisa Owen. The destruction of Whanau Ora by stealth or a politically motivated public stoush? Which is it? A group of 5 prominent Māori queer, including Dame Nada Glavish, Dame Tariana Turia and Meripeka Raukawa Tate, is seeking an urgent Waitangi Tribunal hearing over claims the government is underfunding and undermining Whanau Ora. The program delivers health and social services for Māori through its 3 Māori-led Whanau Ora commissioning agencies. Now, last budget, the government announced an $80 million funding boost to Whanau Ora over 4 years, but not all of that money is being filtered through the commissioning agencies, prompting allegations that the government's diluting the program. Now, the women wrote to the Prime Minister in November last year about their concerns, expressing no confidence in her minister. But they've had no response and lodged their Waitangi claim yesterday. Today, Whanau Ora Minister Pene Henare and the chair of the North Island Commissioning Agency, Meripeka Raukawa Tate, joined me in the studio, and she started by setting out what she sees as the problem.
From what we have seen, particularly in the last 12 months, we believe that the government is starting to undermine Whanau Ora. Whanau Ora has been highly successful. You only have to ask the people who have got value from the services, and we see us now being funding being withdrawn from us. We're seeing other people, particularly government agencies, starting to acquire the Whanau Ora brand, if you want to use that expression, and saying we can deliver Whanau Ora. And Whanau Ora isn't just something that you pluck out of the air. Whanau Ora is about aspirations. It's about encouraging Māori to think into the future. And it is by Māori, for Māori, with Māori. And that is the difference. And so we're seeing that now really over a period of time being whittled down and diluted. And we're really disappointed.
Minister, you're basically being accused there of undermining Whanau Ora by stealth. Is there any truth to what Meripeka has just said?
No, I don't believe so. If there's a truth to what Meripeka has just said is that Whanau Ora is one of those kaupapa that is highly successful. It works amongst families, communities far and wide, and it's one of those initiatives that we believe deserves more support. And the review that was initiated under my time expresses that as well. We also see that there are more opportunities to be had with whānau ora. In order for us to explore what those might be, we've given ourselves the opportunity to do that. Now,
okay, can we just pause there? What do you mean by that? Because the government has pledged $80 million in the most recent budget for whānau ora. Is all of that going to go to whānau ora as we know it and through the commissioning agency for whānau ora?
No, it won't be. So we've made a commitment.
So you're not giving them all the money?
Not all the money, no. We've made a commitment to ensure that their work continues. Their money will continue to increase over the next 4 years.
So how much of the $80 million do they get?
At this stage, it's just over $40 million. We've held on to some of the money to allow
almost
us to...
half of it. Why?
Well, no, not almost half of it. Only about 20 million. To allow us to explore how we might be able to support whānau ora as per the review. The review says that, in particular, 2 things aren't happening in whānau ora. One is that there is an opportunity to look towards more localised opportunities to grow whānau ora, and 2, to allow government agencies to buy into whānau ora, not to deliver whānau ora, but buy into the initiative.
What's wrong with that, Merepeka?
Well, first of all, I think that the Minister is trying to reinvent the wheel. We've been in existence now for over 5 years, and we've got the reach into the communities, and he is right that we can do more at community level, but you can't do more at community level if you don't have the resources, and that's why we would have liked to have seen more money coming to us. And so, you know, when you're in the community, when you know the families, when you've been doing the job, and the other thing is we really understand our communities. That's the difference. But don't tell me any government department or agency is going to be able to deliver better than the providers that we've got now. What we do is we collaborate. Our providers, they collaborate within their collectives, and so we know the value of that. Ask any government agency to collaborate with each other. Hardly. Most of them can't stand each other. They don't talk to each other. They won't share information. And the families who absolutely need the services just don't get the level of service that they require.
How often do you guys talk? Because you're on different pages here, aren't you?
We've met periodically over the past 2 years, 3 years, and certainly in my time as the Minister.
But these women sent you a letter. Well, they sent the letter to the Prime Minister. Yes. The Māori caucus got it as well. And you didn't respond. Nobody's responded to them yet, they say.
It's not uncommon for the Prime Minister to kick those letters to those ministerials who have ministers who have purview. The letter
was you though, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and the letter was rather detailed. It did require us to do a lot of work, and my office continues to work on that.
So did you put them on the back burner?
No, in the meantime, I've also been more than happy to meet with them. In fact, I've seen a number of them and discussed on a number of occasions matters with a couple of the claimants in the last 6 weeks.
Did they raise these serious concerns with you? Is he right? Did you raise them?
We have had no response, no acknowledgement of our letter to the Prime Minister, and our letter really was that we weren't happy with the Minister, with her Minister, which is Minister Henare. And so we detailed a number of things. We've had no acknowledgement. We've had no concern raised with us. Now, over the last 12 months, in fact, since the Minister has become the Minister of Whanau Ora, I have said to him, and we have said it on a number of occasions, please join us every 2 months when we have our board meeting. We realise you won't always be available, but if you can Skype in or if you can video in, just so that we can tell you the good things we're doing, but more importantly, the challenges that we are experiencing and how you can assist us as our Minister. My expectation is that the Minister will listen and he will go all out to back the wonderful work that is currently being done. And the families must be advising him about that, but we want to share it with him. We're not the enemy of the Minister, but I do have high expectations of the Minister.
Merepeka, your group has expressed no confidence in the Minister sitting right beside you there. Mm-hmm. Can you tell him exactly why you have no confidence in him?
Well, first of all, you should be visible to whānau ora providers. That's absolutely crucial. And secondly, we should never have received the minimal amount of funding that we got this year. I expect the Minister to go out to bat to say this is absolutely crucial. Last year, the Prime Minister launched the wellbeing budget, the first in the world, I understand, and that's going to be transformational for many families, particularly those who live in Struggle Street all the time. How are you going to do that without whānau ora providers up and down the country getting more funding to do the absolute work that must be done now?
Okay, the Minister deserves a response. What do you say to that? that?
I've travelled the country and spoken to many providers. I've spoken to families directly who both utilise and access the services of Whanau Ora, and I'm quite clear that their voices must also be heard in this. I have met with...
So what are they telling you, to take the money away from the commissioning agencies?
No, they're not. What they are saying is they want, 1, more accountability, 2, more transparency, 3, the opportunity to determine for themselves what Whanau Ora might look like. For example, in Kaitaia, it will look different to Auckland. And
Don't you think your commissioning agencies can adapt to that?
Well, we do right now.
And we continue to give them the opportunity. We allow them, and like I've said, their money will continue to grow. And that's great, that's awesome. But I think there are opportunities we can explore.
Okay, so the core question is here, do you retain 100% confidence in Whanau Ora and your commissioning agencies?
I have full confidence in the work that the Whanau Ora commissioning agencies do. More importantly, that the providers on the ground provide the services for our whānau who need it the most.
So why divert money away from them if you're 100% confident in them?
Because the review was quite clear. None of the commissioning agencies are able to get the cut through with government agencies. We've made it a particular push to make sure that other government agencies actually stand accountable for our people who deserve whānau ora. And one of those initiatives was announced in the budget.
So, Media Peka, why can't other Māori groups deliver for Māori, as the Minister is suggesting? Why should you have a monopoly on it?
They will over time, but you have to invest in those providers. You've got to build the capacity, build the capability of those providers so they can instill that into the families, that they can develop resilience in the families. We've had to spend money over a number of years to ensure that the providers themselves actually get the skills, get the enhanced skills that they need. So, that's something that we've been absolutely proud of, but we've had to do that. And you can't just have people saying, I'm going to put my hand up and deliver services. There is expertise required, there's knowledge required, and you also you've got to trust the people to be able to deliver, but also you've got to be able to trust them to be supportive of the families, those high needs. Many of them have high and complex needs.
The Minister is right when he says the review into Whanau Ora said there was room to explore other commissioning options, including localised commissioning options. You are happy to take the positive of this report, but you're not happy for the money to go to other agencies?
Well, most of those other agencies you will find, many of them will be mainstream agencies, government agencies. And the Minister is right. We have not been able to have the cut through with government agencies that we would have liked over a period of time. Now, why is that? Because government agencies do not believe that an NGO such as ourselves, or an agency, commissioning agency such as ourselves, can actually do it. We are stunning in the work that we do. We outperform most of the government agencies, and we're crucial to this government being able to transform families. We're actually crucial for that. We've had the experience, and then there is the reluctance to believe that we can do it.
So, Minister, if you have confidence in the commissioning agency and Whanau Ora, and you don't accept these grievances which Media Peka has laid out, what do you think the motivation of these women is?
Oh, look, I have huge respect in the first instance for all of these wahine, Media Peka included, all of them. I've had experiences with them in the past. I know many of them really, really well. And I respect the work that they do. The opinion and the claims that they're asserting against myself and the government, well, I'm more than happy to front up to. And even more so, continue to work with them to make sure that Whanau Ora is the aspirational model into the future. I've got no qualms with that.
But you're publicly saying you think they're politically motivated, aren't you? So
well, look,
what's your issue here?
Look, there are a number of things here that point to me saying that. Obviously, it's an election year. Every issue is important to our people in an election year. I question the motivations, most definitely. But what I will say is this, that regardless of the political motivations, at the end of the day, this is about whānau.
So you are saying they're politically motivated?
I suggest that there might be a hint of political motivation.
In what way? Connected to who?
Oh, well, we know that a number of the claimants are strongly aligned with the Māori Party.
Are you not undermining them publicly by suggesting that these grievances are not real?
Well, because I've always maintained a stance of an open door. I'm more than happy to work through these issues with these people, either collectively or individually. There is no problem with that. And if it comes to a point where we have to present our evidence in the front of a judiciary, I'm more than happy to do that, because I'm quite confident in the approach we've taken with Whanau Ora.
So is this politics? Are you playing politics, Mary Peka?
Not at all. I believe that the minister is being short-sighted. I think we've got Whanau Ora that has been. You've got these women, these Māori leaders. They know this area of work. They've been in this space for such a long time, so they know that hauling Whanau Ora back into government agencies will have no long-term benefit for Māori. They don't get up in the morning and think, no, what can I do today? They're trying to do the best that they can to not take us back to where we've come from.
But that's not what we're doing.
And the minister now, what he should have said is, you're absolutely doing a great job. Here's 80 million. You go do it and move our people to a better place. He could have shone through all of this, but I just don't think it's really. I think if anybody's being political, it's actually the minister.
Do you want him gone from his ministerial role?
I certainly want somebody who will actually do the job. Somebody who'll just put aside the politics of it and say, our people's future is at stake here. I will lobby. I will back Whanau Ora. I know their track record. I know the people who are involved. And why reinvent the wheel and go out into the community and say, well, who's got a Whanau Ora possible project that we can support? It's not about that. Good people out there are looking to the minister to show leadership, and it's not happening.
Do you think you retain sufficient support to stay in the position as Whanau Ora Minister?
I have the full support of the Prime Minister and all of my colleagues, and also I'm confident I have the support of many providers and whānau who look towards the future of Whanau Ora. Can I be clear? Our manifesto stated one amount. I doubled that in my time here. When I came as Minister, Whanau Ora was only worth $74 million. $116 million of new money was announced in the last budget. Some of it goes to the commissioning agencies, others it goes into the community where the providers and whānau are. Can I be very clear? There is no money going to government agencies. I'm very clear on that.
But to other providers without being routed through the Whanau Ora commissioning agencies?
Well, any provider that serves our whānau.
That meets the criteria
Most
of
definitely.
Whanau Ora.
I've been clear from the beginning. The Whanau Ora outcomes framework is unchanged from the time of Dame Tariana Turia. That will not change under my watch. And as long as somebody can align with the Whanau Ora outcomes framework in a very positive manner and can hand on heart say that that's what they're delivering, why would we not explore that?
So your position is, if it fulfills the ambitions of Māori and your goals, it's Whanau Ora, even if it's not channeled through the Whanau Ora commissioning agency.
Because it aligns with the Whanau Ora outcomes framework.
You said that you retain the confidence of your party and the Prime Minister. What conversations have you had with her about this?
We're constantly in regular...
What conversations today when these papers became public?
I haven't spoken to the Prime Minister today. I spoke to her yesterday. I spoke to the Minister of Finance this morning. I've spoken to my senior colleagues today. I am more than happy with the support that I get from
Lisa, the government and the Minister should not be surprised at the action we have taken. Last year at Waitangi, the Prime Minister asked Māori to hold her to account, and that's exactly what we're doing. I'm holding our Minister to account, and we're also holding the Prime Minister to account, her government. That's what she said. She said, we want to be a transformational government. We all heard that. Everybody at Waitangi heard that. A transformational government, and you're diverting the funding from an organisation that can absolutely support this transformation that the Prime Minister wants. And I think that is a backward step. And so, what we're saying is the government should not be surprised, and neither should the Minister. If we don't see anything positive, then what should we should speak up. This is not a time. Leadership is not a popularity contest. And so we have to speak up for the voices that cannot be heard.
You are poles apart. So, does this have to go through a court process, or can you get around the table and get it sorted?
Look, I've been very clear from the beginning. I'm more than happy to meet with them. I know there are opportunities coming at Rātana, Waitangi, but even outside of those dates, my door is always open. I've seen some of the claimants in the past 6 weeks, and...
But is talk going to fix it, or does it need to be shifting of cash, money, in your direction?
What I don't want to see is money going in to make government departments relevant. This is 2020.
The Minister has said categorically that no money will go directly into government departments. It's going to be by Māori, for Māori,
right.
Just not through your agency.
Right, and so all I am saying is that if you're going to work in this space, then you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be able to scale up You've got to be able to scale up. That's the requirement, and that was issued. That was actually said in the report that the minister commissioned himself that we need to do more, and you can only do that by scaling up, and you can't scale up without the necessary dollars to do that.
That sounds like see you in court.
Well, we've certainly started the process, and when you get leaders such as the women, the Māori women who are leaders who have put their names to this paper to take it to the Waitangi Tribunal, that is definitely the start of the process.
So that was the Whanau Ora Minister, Pene Henare, and also the chair of the Whanau Ora Commissioning Agency, Meripeka Raukawa Tate there. Let us know what you think about that. Is the government undermining Whanau Ora by filtering this money through other organisations and programs? Or is it patch protection by the Whanau Ora Commissioning Agencies and politics, as the Minister has suggested there? It's 5:25. You're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Now, you can send us your feedback via text 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or send us an email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Airports in Australia are the latest to begin screening passengers flying in from the Chinese city of Wuhan, where a pneumonia-like virus has infected hundreds of people. The number of people in China infected with the virus tripled over the weekend, with the outbreak spreading from Wuhan to other major cities, including Beijing and Shanghai. In New Zealand, there are no border or travel restrictions, but some Chinese New Zealanders have changed their plans of flying to China for the Lunar New Year. Chen Liu reports.
Health officials have confirmed the virus can pass from person to person. There are now more than 200 cases, mostly in Wuhan. 3 people have died. Japan, Thailand and South Korea have also reported cases. Australia has ramped up airport screenings as a result. Direct flights from Wuhan to Sydney will be met by border security and biosecurity staff, providing information and looking out for anyone who has a fever or suspicious symptoms. Its Chief Medical Officer, Brendan Murphy, says there is no need for alarm and the risk to the Australian public is low.
In response to this significant developments over the weekend, and because Australia has a significant number of international travellers from Wuhan and from China, we are putting in place some additional proportionate border measures.
An Auckland man who doesn't want to be named says his New Zealand-produced masks are in high demand in China.
We do have some high-end face masks, and orders keep coming from Wuhan and more right now because it's Chinese New Year time, and it's very hard getting the logistics. So last night I was sorting out the logistics, trying to ship some big shipment of the face masks into Wuhan.
The man, who is from Wuhan himself, says he decided not to go back for the upcoming Lunar New Year because family and friends in China warned him not to do so. He says there is no need to panic, but he's a bit worried.
I think, once you keep your hands tidy and you're wearing a face mask, you should be fine. I do worry more about just family members and worry about the whole situation. My hometown city, how's it going to be, what's the government going to do, and how many people get infected.
Auckland woman Fiona He has just come back to Auckland after visiting families in Wuhan last week.
Nothing needs to be worried, so much, because I have read the news, but I didn't really feel that, that serious. I think everything, just the normal checks when you go out of the customers.
Ms. He says it seems people outside of Wuhan are more concerned, and locals actually looked relaxed when she was there.
I didn't feel people worry so much because near Chinese New Year, and everybody is busy in, preparing, the big dinner on New Year's Eve, or preparing, just going somewhere. Not many people actually talk about it.
The Ministry of Health says there have been no reported cases of the virus in New Zealand, and there are currently no travel or border restrictions. The ministry says it's keeping a close watch on developments and will update its advice as further information becomes available. A stockbroker says travel-related stocks such as Auckland Airport and Air New Zealand are weaker today amid concerns about the potential impact of the coronavirus on international travel. For Checkpoint, this is Chen Liu.
The government says it remains focused on mitigating climate change impacts rather than preparing for climate refugees, despite a recent United Nations ruling. In a landmark ruling, the UN has said that people fleeing immediate danger because of the climate crisis cannot be forced to return home. The judgment centres on a Kiribati man, Ioane Tesiota, who was deported from New Zealand in 2015 after being denied asylum as a climate refugee. While the UN upheld the decision to deport him, the wording of its ruling appears to open the door to future cases. Political reporter Yvette McCullough has more.
Nations like Kiribati and Tuvalu are bearing the brunt of climate change, battling rising sea levels, sweltering temperatures, extreme weather and concerns about water and food security as fertile land is poisoned by seeping saltwater. While Ioane Tesiota didn't meet the threshold for a climate refugee, the UN is warning that in future others may. Amnesty International researcher Kate Schutze says the ruling sets a global precedent.
They've effectively opened the door to future claims where there is very strong evidence, of course, on those threats to the right to life, that countries might be in breach of their international obligations if they sent them back.
But Ms Schutze says the key is that the threats need to be imminent.
There needs to be very real, tangible, immediate and direct impact on that person's life. So they said that the impacts of climate change getting worse in 10 to 15 years isn't enough to grant someone the ability to stay now or to decide not to send them back now.
Auckland Tuvalu community leader Fala Halangi says the ruling is encouraging news. She says those living on the islands live in constant fear of climate change impacts, like Cyclone Tino, that hit the region over the weekend.
The things that we're hearing from our people, family members, where else can we go? Because Tuvalu is such a flat island. We have no hills or mountains or anywhere or bigger buildings that we can go and hide. There's nowhere we can go and hide. That's the reality. It's more regular now.
Ms Haulangi wants the government to make the question of resettling those affected by climate change a priority. But Immigration Minister Ian Lees-Galloway says the message from the Pacific has been clear.
First and foremost, they want us to focus on combating climate change, mitigating its effects, because they want to be able to continue on as viable nations, viable communities.
Mr Lees-Galloway says the ruling doesn't increase the urgency for work on any climate refugee criteria just yet.
It's not something which work is being actively done on at the moment, but we would expect that it's something that will need to be addressed in the relatively near future. But right now our absolute focus is on mitigating climate change and supporting those Pacific nations.
Ms Haulangi says while a lot of people don't want to give up the fight or flee, for others, hope of turning the tide on climate change is fading.
These things are happening already. What are we waiting for? Until my people are drowned or being washed away completely, and then that's when we're really going to wake up and do something.
From Parliament for Checkpoint, Yvette McCullough.
And coming up on Checkpoint on RNZ National, pressure on farmers as dry and hot conditions deplete water and feed reserves in Northland. And rugby, it's winter sport, right? So why is the Super Rugby season kicking off in January? And the mystery of a putrid smell in Christchurch's eastern suburbs and what the council is doing to find the culprit. I want to hear from you on that one. I need a comparison. What does this smell like? If you've got a whiff of it near you, get in touch. Text me on 2101. You can tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ or email checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Time now for the headlines with Susanna.
The chair of the North Island Whanau Ora commissioning agency says the government is withdrawing funding from the initiative. Merepeka Raukawa-Tate is part of a group of prominent Māori kuia who have filed an urgent Waitangi Tribunal claim over the funding. She told Checkpoint the money is being picked up by government agencies instead. Ms Raukawa-Tate says the government is whittling down and diluting the program and allowing other government agencies to acquire Whanau Ora brand. The police say the people injured on a tour bus that rolled near Queenstown this afternoon are international visitors. 20 people were hurt when the bus crashed on the Glenorchy Queenstown Road shortly after 1:30. 2 people have been airlifted to Dunedin Hospital in a serious condition. Another person has moderate injuries and 17 others have minor injuries. The road will remain closed for some time. Imperial Tobacco has announced a proposal to close its Petone factory with 122 people set to lose their jobs. The potential closure may be due to fewer people smoking cigarettes. Staff were told today. New Zealand has no plans to screen passengers arriving from China despite the spread of a viral pneumonia. There are now more than 200 cases of the coronavirus in China, and health authorities have confirmed the illness can spread from person to person. Some Australian and US airports have started screening travellers. Fire crews with breathing apparatus are on the way after a fire closed off Homer Tunnel on State Highway 94 just before 3 o'clock. It's the only road to Milford Sound, and it's not known how long it will remain closed. Farmers in Northland are becoming increasingly concerned about water and stock feed levels as the region inches toward drought. No heavy rain is forecast for the next few months, and PGG Wrightson's Vaughan Vucic has told Checkpoint feed and water reserves are already starting to wane. He says dryness is an ongoing problem for Northland farmers, but this season has been particularly bad. Those are the latest news headlines from RNZ National. Our next news and weather is at 6.
Thanks, Susanna. If you're just tuning in, this is Checkpoint, and I'm Lisa Owen. Time to get down to business news, that is, with Madison Reedy. Maddie, employment confidence have we got today? Is that what's the latest survey telling us?
So on this one, it's saying that workers are pleased about rising wages, but they're not feeling so good about the prospect of finding a new job, especially if they're made redundant. So that's according to the Westpac McDermott Miller Employment Confidence Index that we got today. It's actually for the month of December. So it rose 2 points to a measure of 102.8 for the last month of last year. So it seems it's now a good time to be employed, but not such a good time to be unemployed. Wage growth is at a 10-year high. So 23% of those workers surveyed for this data set said that their earnings had increased in the 2019 year, and 28% of those surveyed also expect their earnings to increase this year. But when it came to things like current job opportunities and job security specifically, those factors in the index, the measures for those fell. And that's probably because business confidence is still pretty low. So businesses' profitability is being squeezed by things like rising costs. And in these uncertain times, they're not so keen to hire new staff.
Interesting. And it probably doesn't tell us this, but I'd be interested to know if they think the increases in their wages are making them feeling any more affluent versus the cost. Because you talk there about...
We would see that in consumer spending, which has actually risen recently. And as we saw with the data that came through, especially with e-card spending that came through at the end of last year from Black Friday and Cyber Monday, those sales absolutely boomed and actually topped Boxing Day sales. So consumers are absolutely out there spending.
Interesting. Okay, so you've got a New Zealand-born tech company that is looking to list on the share market. What are they offering us?
This is the retail technology company called Laybuy, and it's preparing to list on the Australian Stock Exchange, not our stock exchange. So if you don't know, Laybuy is a buy now, pay later service. It's one of many that have risen to success in recent years, this sort of boom, and it's essentially a modern twist on the traditional Laybuy service. But the difference is that if you buy an item using one of these buy now, pay later services, they're essentially third-party apps. You can actually take the items home with you and pay for the item over a couple of weeks in instalments. Now, this particular company, Laybuy, was actually started by a father and son duo in Auckland. It's now actually based in Britain, in London, and it's majority owned by the Auckland-based investment firm Pioneer Capital. Now, a source close to the company has told me that it's appointed advisors in Australia to look through its funding options to help fund its expansion and its international growth. Now, it considered listing on the ASX. It also considered at a high level listing on the NZX, so that's the New Zealand Stock Exchange, and also on British markets as well. It also floated the idea of doing nothing and seeing what that would do for the company's growth, and it also considered raising more money privately through a private capital raising. So it landed on that idea of a sole listing on the ASX, on the Australian market, and the source I spoke to says that's because it thinks that Australian investors understand its business best. That's because its competitors, most namely the dominant player in Australia, Afterpay, it's a big one here too, and also Zip, they're both listed on the ASX. In fact, Afterpay actually has a market capitalisation of near $9 billion. So that's why they thought the ASX was probably a good place to go. This one will be a bit of a bitter pill for the NZX to swallow though, because they have been losing companies in droves, especially to private equity firms, which are taking over some of our biggest companies. In fact, ones like MetLife Care and Whanau Healthcare are in takeover talks at the moment, so they could be set to leave the NZX this year. So the NZX really is in need of new companies and new product offerings to offer investors here. But despite that, Lay-by is getting on with this one anyway to list on the ASX. The source tells me that they're looking to raise between 10 and 15 million Australian dollars in a pre-listing capital raise. And then when they do go with their initial public offering before they list, they're going to look to raise a minimum of 45 million Australian dollars. They are yet to lodge any formal applications with Australian authorities, as they're required to do in this process, but they are aiming to be listed by June.
Okay, so what else has been happening on the markets today?
We actually had a record high. Believe it or not, we're hitting these quite often now, aren't we?
Yeah, after yesterday's dip, you've bounced back.
So yesterday we had a dip, and that was off the back of 3 rises last week. So back to a new record. So the NZX Top 50 Index rose 0.5% today to close at 11,805 points. So that's the new number to beat. The New Zealand dollar, that's buying at 66 US cents, 96.3 to the Australian, and 50.1 British pence.
Thanks, Madison. Madison Reedy with our business update. Farmers in Northland say they're becoming increasingly worried about water and feed reserves as the region tracks towards a drought. Widespread dry spells with no significant rain forecast for the next 3 months have left many concerned about what the rest of the summer may hold. And a farmer and stock agent says cattle may have to be slaughtered earlier if conditions don't improve. Katie Doyle reports.
Northland farmers say conditions are hot and dry, which is draining water reserves and feed. A senior stock representative for PGG Wrightson, Vaughan Vusic, says that is going to adversely affect the Northland industry.
Just puts pressure down the line on having to kill cattle earlier. Cattle space is limited because of the dryness. There's a lot of numbers coming out, and that creates a space issue of getting the cattle away in the right timing, and then also creates the market to soften quite a bit because of the dryness as well. You don't have the buyers and to come back in and rebuy as well when people are selling normally.
Mr Vusic says dryness is an ongoing concern for farmers, especially at this time of year when feed and water reserves start to wane. He says this season has been particularly bad.
We worry every year. Like, I'm a farmer myself, but we worry every year about the dry and what the weather's going to, we're dictated to so much by the weather. But certainly this year seems to be, leading to, a stronger dry situation.
Another Northland farmer, Evan Sneath, says the worst of the dry weather is yet to come. He says the dryness is exacerbating already low levels of feed, brought on by a dry winter.
There wasn't a lot of supplement made here in Northland this year due to the fact that we had a dry winter, and then we went into the dry quite early, and so that's the biggest concern.
And what happens if you don't have enough feed?
We've got to buy it in, and then it's just a cost. The profit at the other end is a whole lot less.
But it's a different story for orchardist Dave Kelly, who says the dry, hot weather is fantastic for kiwi fruit. He says Kerikeri in particular has an irrigation system designed to withstand 2 serious back-to-back droughts.
So we're in a pretty luxurious position thanks to the foresight of some that came before us. So it's actually quite a preferable place to be, especially in terms of controlling PSA. Nice, hot and dry is great, grows good fruit as long as you've got water, and we've got water.
The Minister for Agriculture, Damien O'Connor, says he is concerned about the situation and is monitoring it closely. But he says certain thresholds must be met for the government to provide financial assistance.
Soil moisture around the reserves of water, and indeed, the seasons that have gone before. In Northland, they've had a dry winter. Other areas like Waikato and Tasman haven't had such a dry period, and so they've got stores of feed for animals. So we take all of those things into account and work alongside local organisations.
Mr O'Connor says teams from the Ministry of Primary Industries have been deployed to the affected areas. He says they are talking with federated farmers and other groups to make sure farmers are supported as best they can be. For Checkpoint, Katie Doyle.
2 people have been arrested following 2 gang-related shootings in Ruatoria and Taradale over the weekend. Mongrel mob and Black Power members fought in Taradale on Sunday and 1 man was shot. In Ruatoria on Saturday, shots were exchanged between people in cars and a person at a house. The Eastern District Commander, Superintendent Tanya Kura, this afternoon told media that there had been 1 arrest in each of the shootings and more arrests are likely.
I'm concerned about the firearms events in Ruatoria and Taradale this last weekend. I want to reassure you that police treat these matters seriously and the safety and the well-being of our community is a priority. We are determined to hold those responsible accountable for their actions and we are grateful for the support of our community. Staff from outside Eastern District are supporting local staff with visible patrolling in both Ruatoria and Taradale. You can expect to see an increased police presence in both areas and please feel free to approach officers with any concerns you have. Staff continue to be armed and will be for as long as deemed necessary. Gang violence in our community is not acceptable and will not be tolerated. Our inquiries to date indicate the 2 incidents from the weekend were as a result of ongoing tensions between the Mongrel mob and Black Power gangs, and as far as we can see at this point the events are not related. I would like to thank the members of the public who have come forward so far and encourage anyone with further information that may assist this investigation to contact police on 105 or Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111.
Detective Inspector Rob Jones says gang numbers have risen by at least 30 to 40 members in the past few years. He says the cause of current tensions is unclear, though it's an overstatement to say the gangs are at war.
Following the firearms incidents at the weekend, I can reassure the public that we have 2 sizeable investigations currently underway. We are working through CCTV footage from the Taradale incident on Sunday in an effort to understand the events that led up to the incident and identify offenders and other people of interest to the investigation. I can assure the public that both investigations are progressing well and we're actively following lines of inquiry. At this time, we believe that while the Mongrel mob and Black Power gangs are involved in both incidents, we don't believe that they are connected. There are certainly tensions that have existed for some time between both gangs. I think to say that they're at war is an overstatement.
Commander Kura says the tensions between gangs keep shifting.
If you go to the gang members, go to leaders and ask them exactly what they are, they've changed over time. Some of it's tit for tat, some of it's stuff that we will never know. In my experience, I'd say that there's drug dealing is a big part of it, and that there's the patch protection.
That was Superintendent Tanya Kura speaking to media about gang tensions in her region. It is about 14 minutes away from 6. I'm Lisa Owen and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. And more than 20 new district court judges have been appointed today in a bid to speed up trial times and improve people's access to justice. 11 new judges have been promoted to replace retiring judges alongside 10 new positions. The Attorney-General, David Parker, explained to political reporter Joe Moyer why the numbers needed to increase.
We need the new positions partly because the workload of the court has increased. It's partly because of population increase, partly because some of the trials are more complex than they used to be, and partly because we're trying to take an approach to therapeutic courts where we're trying to deal with the underlying drug and addiction issues of some of the offenders so that they don't re-offend. So there is 10 new positions, so access to justice will improve.
What does that mean, I guess, in real time for people who are using the court system? How much is that going to speed up the process?
Well, it should mean that there's less time waiting for trial. Some of the trial delays have been increasing of late because we haven't had enough judges. So the last budget funded these additional judges and we're now putting them in place. It's really pleasing to see that of the new judges, they're a lot more diverse in their background. 10 of the new judges are Maori, 8 Pākehā, 1's Maori Chinese, 2 Samoan, 12 of the new judges are women. So I have a view that the judiciary should reflect the makeup of the community it serves, and it's great to see such high quality appointees coming forward from these diverse backgrounds.
Now, the cap has been increased as well, but you haven't hit that cap yet. What's the reason for that?
Well, we were about to hit the cap of 160. In fact, we're at it. We've increased the legislated cap, which is the maximum number of judges that the government's allowed to appoint, from 160 to 182. We don't need to appoint all of them straight away. There's a bit of room for growth in the future, if you like, as the population increases. But we've increased the number of judges immediately from 155 to 172.
Is it fair to say that it's likely that the cap will be reached after more funding's allocated perhaps through the budget process this year?
No, I don't expect that. No, this new cap won't be reached for some years.
And in terms of that diversity, there's obviously a lot of work being done in the judicial system at the moment about making it more accessible for people and people feeling safer and as if they're being heard. So has there been a specific move around that in terms of who has been appointed in this latest round?
Well, I think from the Chief Justice down, Chief Justice Helen Wynne-Kelman, myself, the new Chief District Court Judge, we all believe that the bench of judges should reflect the diversity of our country. Obviously, you never want to sacrifice quality for those ambitions, but you don't have to. And it's really pleasing to see this diversity come through.
David Parker speaking to reporter Joe Moyer. Convicted drug smuggler Karol Srubeck has been refused early release from prison for the fourth time. The Czech kickboxer, also known as Jan Antalik, is 4 years into a 6-year jail sentence for importing 5 kilograms of ecstasy into the country. He jumped into the headlines in 2018 when Immigration Minister Ian Lees-Galloway backtracked on his controversial decision to grant him residency. Our court reporter, Annika Smith, was at Srubeck's parole hearing at Wiri Prison today, and she joins us now. Annika, what happened out there?
Kia ora. Well, Srubeck sat with his lawyer Paul Wicks QC and a number of supporters at Wiri Prison this afternoon in front of the parole board. It's his 4th bid for early release and he was declined. He started by reading a letter effectively saying he was incredibly remorseful for his offending and was ready for a fresh start in his life. He said he just wanted to lead a simple life focusing on friends and family and actually wanted to have his own family one day. Now, he sounded really earnest in his submissions or what he told the parole board, but he was very much just towing the same line that he did at his last parole board hearing in Wellington. We did hear from his principal prison officer who told the board that he'd been living in a self-care unit for some years now and effectively was causing no trouble, was keeping busy teaching yoga behind bars and was a model prisoner. He has 2 years left to serve of his sentence.
So is he still deemed to be a risk to the community, or what's the barrier to him getting an early release?
Yeah, so for the parole board, their primary concern is risk to the community. Community safety is paramount. So they heard today that a psychologist had freshly assessed Karol Srubeck and found he was still at medium risk of reoffending. His past offending, the backdrop to this case is quite complex. He was convicted of drug smuggling, as we've heard. He's also been convicted of passport fraud and has pending charges and an unserved prison sentence in the Czech Republic. This poses a problem for the parole board. They have to think of community safety and working out whether he's safe to release. The parole board they wanted to know what could be done to address his medium risk, and to start off with, Srubeck didn't really accept this risk. He said the psychologist was biased in assessing him, having seen some international arrest warrant papers. He said his offending wasn't violent and he was sure he could live a pro-social life on release as he had behind bars.
And is that the phrase he uses, pro-social life?
That wasn't the phrase that he used. He said he could just continue to live a life without offending. Yeah, sorry, that's some justice jargon.
Interesting. So there is a point of contention also over his immigration status and whether he faces deportation. What's the deal there?
Yeah, that's probably the most interesting part of his case. So Karol Srubeck is liable for deportation, but he will remain in New Zealand until he is before his appeal to the Immigration and Protection Tribunal can be heard. So effectively he is left in limbo, and the parole board of course has to consider what would happen to him if he was deported while on early release, having got parole. So the parole board chairperson today, Sir Ron Young, actually told Srubeck that he must consider that the board has to be satisfied arrangements have been made in the Czech Republic if he was to be deported on early release. So that's one more thing that he has to consider. Those are sort of the parting words that we heard today before the Parole Board officially declined early release and told Schrubeck that he'll be back before them in November. They did say that he could he'd be seeing a psychologist through corrections halfway through the year, but did note that if he saw a private psychologist, he could potentially fast-track his progress through this case. So we'll see what he has to say come November this year.
Should he get early release, there's no suggestion, is there, that he would be immediately deported if he still had this appeal sitting there waiting to be heard?
No, that's the issue. He's sort of in limbo. He'll be in the country. He has to have this appeal heard. Those are his rights. So by right, he'll remain in the country. But, the normal process was that he would be deported. A complex case, as you can imagine. There's been lots of twists and turns in this. So the next step is another parole board hearing in November. I have gone to the Immigration and Protection Tribunal to seek whether they've set a date to hear his appeal, and they're yet to come back to me, so we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. That is Annika Smith, who was at the prison in Whitty for Carol Schrubeck's parole hearing, and as you heard there, fourth time, unlucky, denied again, and still considered to be a medium risk of reoffending. The baking January sun tends to lend itself more to cricket than rugby, but Super Rugby is already gearing up for kick-off. The first games will take place next Friday, the earliest they have ever been held in the new year. This year's tournament was launched in Auckland this morning amid the hot weather and tough grounds that players are having to contend with in their training. Our cameraman Nick Monroe and reporter Nita Blake-Person filed this report.
Auckland's scorching sun turning it on for some of rugby's top guns. Players from the Chiefs, Highlanders, Hurricanes, Blues and Crusaders joining local school kids for a game on a hard and dry pitch alongside Mission Bay.
Yeah, stay hydrated.
It was some light relief for most of the players who are gearing up for another full-on year of Super Rugby. Next Friday, the Brumbies will take on the Reds in Canberra, while the Blues will play the Chiefs at Eden Park. Imani Narawa is preparing for his first season with the team and says training has been heating up.
Yeah, even in training it's been pretty tough, it's pretty hot. Yeah, it's just, just making it a little bit more tougher in training, running around, sweating heaps, so yeah. But I think some of the boys are struggling with it, it's pretty tough when we do contact. So yeah, boys having a bit of bruises.
Hurricanes player Adi Savia is still recovering from a knee injury he suffered at the Rugby World Cup. He's recovering well and says the warm weather hasn't been having too much of an impact on trainings in the capital.
It's been pretty cold in Wellington, we haven't had no summer, but I don't think it's changed anything in terms of mindset within the team. It's just kind of crammed all our pre-season quite tight, so we're trying to get a lot of things done in a short amount of time, so it's kind of put pressure on us to come together quickly than what previous years have done. So I think it's a good thing. Gets the boys out there playing footy straight away, which is what the boys love.
Meanwhile, Crusaders player George Bridge says a warm start to the year is good news for the game.
I think it'll make it funner. I suppose the earlier start, sort of the quicker pitches, the drier ball makes our game plan a bit more free flowing and allows us to throw the ball around. So for me it's fun, and for the spectators and stuff it makes it a fun brand of footy to watch. Most of the pitches that we play on these days are pretty well maintained and watered, so you can't really complain about that. You might get the odd grass burn or something, but you just have to deal with it.
While the warm weather may bring challenges to the game, Super Rugby referee Brendan Pickerel says work is underway to make sure this season is safer thanks to the launch of a high tackle review system.
There's somebody watching all of the tackles in the game, and then after the game, if there's been some tackles where the player's deemed to have poor technique, dangerous tackling technique, then he'll be notified after the game through his club with perhaps some measures of how he could improve for next week.
The Super Rugby rounds will run until the end of May, with the qualifiers and final matches due to take place in June. For Checkpoint, Nita Blake-Person.
An update here on the bus crash in Queenstown. This is from Inspector Olaf Jensen, who's the Otago Lakes Area Commander. 2 people have been airlifted to hospital in a serious condition out of Queenstown following a single vehicle bus crash near the town this afternoon. There were more than 20 people on board the bus who were foreign nationals. 2 others on the bus were taken to hospital to be treated for less serious injuries. And Inspector Jensen says, while is wanting to thank the members of the public who were first on the scene, who in essence acted as first responders and helped those involved until the emergency services arrived. Obviously, there is an investigation underway and the Serious Crash Unit is looking into that, as well as the Commercial Vehicle Safety Team. And time for some of your feedback on a story we had earlier in the program, which was about Whanau Ora. A case has been lodged with the Waitangi Tribunal. The allegation is that the government is undermining Whanau Ora and underfunding it. Mixed bag on your views on this. Some of you think it is political, that the complaint is political, pure political patch protection by the sound of it, this person says. This government increased funding and seeks more groups to make use of it. Your guest sounded selfish and lacking trust in the very people she seeks to help. On the other end of the spectrum, though, this person says, I am concerned that Whanau Ora does not seem to be valued for its brand and its consultative approach to delivery of service, where whānau and families all work together to guide a service by Māori for Māori. Old-fashioned bureaucracy just can't do this. Government funding organisations and service deliverers who have not developed the skill is tragic. Adrian says, I agree with the Minister because not all of us Māori go through Whanau Ora, so there should be other options for us, says Adrian. Neil Waka has got in touch to say, wouldn't it be good if iwi spent some treaty money to help my people, billions helping a few? More on this after the 6 o'clock news.
RNZ News at 6. Ngā mihi nui ko Susana Leata tēnei. Eastern District Police are reassuring the public that everything is being done to calm gang tensions in the region. Black Power and mongrel mob members fought in Taradale on Sunday and 1 man was shot. And in Ruatoria on Saturday, shots were fired between people in cars and a person at a house. 2 arrests have so far been made, 1 from each incident. Andrew McRae reports.
Police say there have been tensions between the gangs for some time, but they don't know what's causing it. Superintendent Tania Kura says it could be tit for tat, drug-related or patch protection. She says the violence will not be tolerated. Police say there's ongoing communication with gang leaders who appear to have lost some control over their younger members. They're appealing for calm and common sense. Ko Andrew McRae tēnei.
The chair of the North Island Whanau Ora Commissioning Agency says funding is being withdrawn from the initiative, with the money being picked up by government agencies instead. Meripeka Raukawa Tate is part of a group of prominent Māori kuia seeking an urgent Waitangi Tribunal hearing over their claims the government is undermining Whanau Ora. She's told Checkpoint the ethos of Whanau Ora can't just be replicated by others who say they can deliver the same services.
And it is by Māori, for Māori, with Māori, and that is the difference. And so we're seeing that now really over a period of time being whittled down and diluted, and we're really disappointed.
Meripeka Raukawa Tate, the chair of the North Island Whanau Ora Commissioning Agency. International visitors were injured when a tour bus rolled near Queenstown this afternoon. 20 people were hurt when the bus crashed on the Glenorchy-Queenstown Road shortly after 1:30. 2 people have been airlifted to Dunedin Hospital in a serious condition. Another person has moderate injuries and 17 others have minor injuries. Inspector Olaf Jensen has commended members of the public who were the first responders on the scene. He says the police are speaking to other passengers on the tour bus. The road will remain closed for some time. Mr. Olaf says heavy lifting equipment is needed to right the bus. Health authorities in Australia are concerned about a further spread of a new virus after China confirmed it can be passed on from person to person. There are more than 200 confirmed cases of the pneumonia-like virus, which began in Wuhan in China. The BBC's Fergus Walsh reports.
Almost all of the cases so far have been the result of close contact with animals. The source is thought to be a seafood market in the city of Wuhan, where the outbreak is centred. But China's National Health Commission has confirmed there have been a small number of cases of human-to-human transmission. Some medical staff are said to have been infected. Health authorities in China are urging the public not to panic as hundreds of millions prepare to travel to celebrate the Lunar New Year. It's inevitable that this will lead to a further upsurge in cases.
Fergus Walsh reporting New Zealand has no plans to screen passengers arriving from China at this stage. Pinpointing odours, which are plaguing Christchurch's eastern suburbs, could be closer with the trial of a new app. Residents of Bromley, Linwood and Woolston have complained about strong odours in the area for years, but the authorities have struggled to find an exact cause. The Canterbury Regional Council says the cause could be down to industrial sources or natural causes, such as the Avon and Heathcote River estuary. The council's senior manager for service delivery, Nick Daniels, has told Checkpoint the app will help people report odours, which will help authorities pinpoint where the smell is coming from.
And actually we've been really encouraged by industry who've actually wanted to work with us to ensure that their processes not only don't cause the foul and objectionable ones, but also don't cause the underlying chronic ones.
Nick Daniels. A car fire in Homer Tunnel near Milford Sound is now under control. Emergency services shut the tunnel on State Highway 94 at about 4:45 this afternoon. It's on the only road to and from Milford Sound and is not expected to reopen for a few hours. A spokesperson says the cause of the fire is not yet known. More water restrictions have been imposed in the far north, including hosepipe bans. The District Council says level 3 restrictions, meaning it's illegal to use sprinklers, irrigators or handheld hoses, are needed for the South Hokianga supply to reduce demand on the Waiterama stream. Kaikohe, Kaitaia and Kawakawa water supplies are already restricted. Conditions in Northland, Auckland and Upper Waikato are currently one level below a drought. It's coming up to 5 minutes past 6. Auckland's Mount Smart Stadium has been confirmed as home base for the World Rally Championship when the motorsport event returns to New Zealand in September. The stadium will be the location of the event's service park and will host a super special stage to be contested on a purpose-built concrete course. Rally New Zealand 2020 Chief Executive Michael Goldstein says the spectator-friendly venue is key to helping rebuild the sport with local fans.
With eight years between WRC events, one of the things that we want to achieve is to put rallying back at the forefront of people's minds. And that's really around getting as many people engaged with the event as possible. Rallying's got a huge history in New Zealand, and we really want to draw on that, but then also kick-start it again.
Michael Goldstein. The All Black flanker Adi Savea says it's been frustrating having to sit on the couch over Christmas and New Year as he recovers from a knee surgery, which has ruled him out of the bulk of the Super Rugby competition. Savea suffered the injury during the World Cup semi-final loss to England and had surgery last month. He's back walking and can do some biking, but admits it's inhibited his social media activities, as he's been told by his doctor to stop posting videos of his dance moves on Instagram. A short time ago, the men's top seed at the Australian Open tennis tournament, Rafael Nadal, won the first set of his match against Hugo de Leon 6-2. Nadal is trying to equal Roger Federer's record of 20 Grand Slam titles. That's the news.
Tonight on Nights, we have a window on the world of Rotorua's Coffin Club, whose elderly members build and decorate their final resting places. Olaf Daigle discusses 3D printing in an Auckland pub. Beers not included. And our largely libertarian commentator Eric Crampton on parenting and getting kids to do chores. Might sealed tendering encourage that? Or is Eric overplaying his faith in the market force? Join me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight tomorrow. Northland to Wellington, including Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, Central High Country and Wairarapa. Mainly fine. Areas of low cloud morning and night. Isolated showers tonight about Bay of Plenty and Fort Taupo tomorrow. Gisborne and Hawke's Bay mostly cloudy with some fine breaks. Bulla, Nelson and Marlborough mostly fine. Areas of cloud morning and evening, mainly near the coast. Westland mostly cloudy but fine breaks tomorrow afternoon. Scattered rain developing south of the glaciers tomorrow night. For Canterbury mostly cloudy but afternoon fine breaks. Fiordland, Otago and Southland mainly fine today. Isolated showers inland. Patchy rain tomorrow. Chatham Islands mostly cloudy. Isolated showers. RNZ National. It's 7.5 minutes past 6.
Thanks, Susanna, and thank you for joining us. This is Checkpoint, and I'm Lisa Owen. The head of Whanau Ora is warning the Policies Minister, Pene Henare, that if he continues to allow government agencies to dip into their funding, he can kiss Māori progress goodbye. It comes as distinguished Māori leaders seek an urgent Waitangi Tribunal hearing over the government's handling of Whanau Ora funding. Tianiwa Hurehanganui reports.
The Whanau Ora policy allows Māori to control the funding and delivery of social services through its 3 Māori-led commissioning agencies. It received an $80 million funding boost over 4 years in the 2019 budget. But North Island Commissioning Agency Chair, Merepeka Raukawa-Tate, says not all of that money is going to them.
We do know that the additional funding has gone into government agencies and to a new initiatives that they're calling Whanau Ora initiatives. They're using that and saying that that's the way that they can develop policy that will be good for whānau. That money, the additional money, is actually needed by Whanau Ora, not by a government department, any government department. They have never known what's good for Māori. And the other thing, of course, is Māori walk from them. They don't want to know them.
Merepeka Raukawa-Tate and other Māori leaders are now seeking an urgent Waitangi Tribunal hearing, claiming the government has breached the Treaty of Waitangi by refusing to adequately and transparently fund Whanau Ora. Of the $20 million extra funding Whanau Ora was promised last year, only about $5 million was received by the commissioning agencies. Ms Raukawa-Tate says that doesn't make any sense, and she has a message for the Minister of Whanau Ora, Pene Henare.
Be the minister that we want to have confidence in. At this present moment, we do not. If he does not understand his role and our expectations of him, then you can kiss Māori progress goodbye for the next 2 decades.
Pene Henare denies any of the Whanau Ora funding is going to other government agencies. He says the 3 commissioning agencies will receive an extra $42 million and the rest has been earmarked for new Whanau Ora initiatives, including one to support people who have whānau in prison.
Some of the money has already been allocated to growing Whanau Ora through commissioning. Some of the money is currently sits there while the co-design of new initiatives is underway, and namely the one with the Corrections Agency. That money has not gone to corrections, a correctional facility, or the Minister for Corrections. But I can guarantee that none of the money has gone back into government coffers or government agencies.
Multiple reviews into Whanau Ora, including an independent review in 2018, found the policy not only works, but current funding and resourcing cannot meet the demand in some areas. But Mr Henare says it doesn't matter where the support is coming from, as long as whānau are getting the help they need.
My job isn't to please commissioning agencies. My job is to make sure that whānau, wherever they might be, get the Whanau Ora support they deserve. We made it clear that in order for Whanau Ora to grow off the back of the review, that we were to push Whanau Ora to have support from other government agencies.
Lady Tureiti Moxon, the director of a leading Whanau Ora health provider in Waikato, says the minister should be backing the Whanau Ora commissioning model, a model which has been proven to change people's lives.
We can look after our own people. We can do this for ourselves. But if the government is going to say hold back funding, there's no way that we can actually develop and grow ourselves because the demand is huge. You do what you can with the money with the resources that we're given. But it's when you compare it with what other ministries are getting, it's minuscule.
The claimants want the Waitangi Tribunal to recommend urgent systemic changes to the way Whanau Ora funding decisions are made in order to avoid further prejudice to Māori. Mo te hōtaka o te ahiahi, ko te aniwa, Hurehanganui, aho.
And a number of you getting in touch on this topic. This person says, in failing to acknowledge the concerns raised by Whanau Ora, the Prime Minister has once again shown how little she understands Māori. This is a serious breach of protocol, a real slap in the face for the complainants, and it's really no wonder at all that some people are fuming and are taking to the warpath. They go on to say damage control by the government is sorely needed to avoid this all going to the Waitangi Tribunal. Will Ardern act, they ask? She should. It's her duty. duty to. But Stephen holds a completely different view. Stephen says it's political, preparing the Māori Party plan to resurrect itself. Look at who the players are and their political loyalties. Government has to be very careful to spend our money wisely with people they can trust. Let's head offshore now, and authorities are on high alert and are scrambling to contain a new virus that's spreading in China and beyond. At least 3 people have died from the virus, which originated in Wuhan but has since spread to big cities like Beijing and Shanghai. Thailand, Japan and South Korea have also reported cases. And border security in Australia will now check the health of passengers arriving from Wuhan. The BBC's health correspondent, Fergus Walsh, has the latest.
It's official. China's mysterious new virus can pass from person to person. Health authorities there are urging the public not to panic. Most cases have come as a result of direct contact with animals. But human-to-human transmission means this virus is potentially a far bigger threat. The outbreak centres on the city of Wuhan, population 11 million, where the source is thought to be a seafood market. 170 people in Wuhan are being treated in hospital. Several are critically ill, and 3 deaths have been confirmed. There have been a handful of cases of the virus in South Korea, Thailand and Japan, all travellers who'd come from Wuhan. The infection is a new type of coronavirus which originated in animals. Although person-to-person transmission has been confirmed, it does not thankfully spread easily. Signs of infection include breathing problems, fever and cough. Now, it's the height of the flu season, meaning it's hard to know initially what infection patients have. Hundreds of millions of Chinese are expected to travel over the coming week to celebrate the Lunar New Year, making further spread inevitable. At train stations and airports, temperature scanners are being used. Some airports in the United States, Singapore and Japan are screening travellers. The outbreak is a reminder of the SARS epidemic, also caused by a coronavirus that killed nearly 800 people worldwide nearly 20 years ago. Then there was an initial cover-up by the authorities. This time, global health officials say China has learned from past mistakes. It may be weeks or months, though, before we know how big a threat this new virus poses.
And that was Fergus Walsh reporting. It is almost 16 minutes after 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. A mysterious smell likened to rotting fish or dead animals is continuing to plague Christchurch's eastern suburbs. Residents in Bromley, Linwood and Woolston have been complaining about the stench for years. But so far, the cause of the smell remains elusive, with authorities saying it could be a range of things such as industrial sites or the Avon Heathcote estuary. And pinpointing the source could be a step closer, though, with Canterbury Regional Council trialling apps for residents to report the smell as soon as they catch a whiff. Ananzaki reports from Christchurch.
Woolston resident Karen Fallon says the smell has been around for as long as she can remember.
It's almost like a sulphur sort of smell, It's very dependent on the wind, so if it's, I don't even know, I'm not very good with directions, but whichever way it needs to blow, if it's blowing this way, we do get it really strongly.
Ms Fallon has lived in the city's eastern suburbs for 23 years and has always thought it was the city's oxidation ponds. But now she's not so sure.
Yeah, it's always been bad, but probably a bit more so since the earthquakes, and that has made me wonder over time whether it is actually the Bromley ponds or whether there is another cause for it.
The Canterbury Regional Council has been trying to figure it out too, and about 12 months ago it started a specific program to look at odours. Its senior manager for service delivery, Nick Daniels, says within those 12 months there have been more than 300 odour-related complaints.
There are quite literally a number of courses out there, including both food processing industries, composting industries. There's also a wastewater treatment plant and transfer stations. So there are a number of potentially odour-emitting sources out in Bromley that we need to try and get on top of.
Mr Daniels says work done with the Canterbury District Health Board has shown there is no health risk associated with the odours. and he hopes smartphones can be used as a tool to help find the culprits.
We're trialling currently apps for residents to be able to better report, and gives us better intelligence as to what types of odours and helping us to track down sources of odours.
Businesses can also be penalised for releasing unpleasant odours.
They can be in breach of resource consent by emitting foul and objectionable odours. It's very difficult to take enforcement action in this area.
The Canterbury Regional Council will hold feedback sessions on the apps next month and report back to the local community board in mid to late March. In Christchurch for Checkpoint, this is Anand Zaki.
OK, stand by for some feedback on the smelly situation. Cannot promise a straight face through all of it. Chris has got in touch to say they work in the Bromley area, have done for 18 years. No smell here, Chris says. There's one road near the sewage pond where it occasionally gets a bit smelly, has been forever. Why buy a house near there, asks Chris. And this one. The smell in Eastern Christchurch smells like someone has let off in the car. There are often questions asked in our car about who is responsible. Sorry, I know this is probably Okay, until they realise what area they are in, and then they have a bit of a chuckle about the poor people who live in that street. Right, I think we can move on from the bad smells in Christchurch. Let's head offshore now, and tourism operators in Australia are reporting a rise in cancellations from overseas visitors as a result of the bushfires. The federal government has announced a $76 million tourism recovery package, but tourist companies say it will be a long road back, particularly encouraging tourists back from key markets like China. The ABC's Rachel Mealy reports.
Early figures from Tourism Australia indicate a 20 to 30% drop in international bookings for January. Ben Woodward is the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Capta Group, which owns tour companies and wildlife parks in North Queensland. He says his company has felt an immediate hit.
In Cairns and the Great Barrier Reef, we have observed there has been cancellations for groups. Over the last few weeks, we know groups are cancelling mainly around where they've got in their itinerary a day, Sydney also included. So concerns around the smoke haze in Sydney has led to them cancelling their entire visit to Australia.
Reservation sites Booking.com and Expedia have reported a 30 to 40% decline in bookings for next week's Chinese New Year holiday. Dario Cerotti is the Sales and Marketing Manager for the Fraser Gallop Estate in Western Australia's Margaret River. He says even though it's not directly fire affected, people across the region are worried about the impacts the fires will have on tourist numbers.
Everyone is talking about, particularly tour operators and businesses in town. Everyone is worried because the message that is going out there is that Australia is devastated with bushfires, and unfortunately international visitors, they think that Australia is a small place, which isn't.
Mr Cerotti says no tourist industry will escape the downturn because of a misinterpretation overseas of where the fires have hit.
I mean, I've been in Australia for 10 years now, and I had people sending me friends requests on Facebook just to ask me if I was fine and my family was fine. And not just one occasion, but a couple of people have done that. So that really made me think that the situation is gone out of control, really, in terms of social media. And again, unfortunately, international visitors think that if there are fires in Victoria or in New South Wales, WA is affected as well.
Sarah Gardner is the Director of the Griffith Institute for Tourism. She says any recovery package needs to do more than just marketing to get the Australian tourism sector back on its feet quickly.
Our challenge now is to really change the narrative and change the story about Australia, educate people and also the tourism industry, so people that are selling travel to Australia, that Australia is open for business and many of our areas are unimpacted by the bushfire event.
And that was Dr Sarah Gardner ending that report from Rachel Mealy. Rally New Zealand will make history at Mount Spart Stadium when it returns as part of the World Rally Championship in Auckland. Today, organisers announced the stadium in Penrose will act as a hub for car maintenance during the rally in September, as well as hosting a special racecourse. Felicity Reid reports.
Mount Smart Stadium has hosted international athletes and performing artists, but in a few months' time, rally cars will take centre stage. On a purpose-built concrete course inside the stadium, rally drivers will race against the clock on a short, spectator-friendly stage of the World Rally Championship. Rally New Zealand 2020 CEO Michael Goldstein says the stadium will let fans get close to the action.
It's really exciting for us to be able to bring rallying to the people, and having an event here makes it really accessible to all kinds of fans, of sports fans, general motorsport fans, and people who live in Auckland and in the suburbs to come and actually experience this event firsthand without needing to go out onto the roads.
Although the entire route for the rally is yet to be confirmed, Goldstein is promising some iconic roads will feature.
We're obviously looking at some famous rally roads down into the Waikato and north of Auckland, so you'll see those announcements come over the next few weeks.
Champion rally driver, New Zealander Hayden Paddon, is an ambassador for the event, and the 32-year-old says he wants to compete at the event too. Paddon's last 2 attempts to compete in the WRC have been stopped before he made the start line, but he hopes to change that this year.
We'd really like to try and be in a top-line car because we'd have a little bit of an advantage that we do know the roads, and all the current generation of drivers have never done this rally. They don't know the roads, so it'd give us a good leg up, and that's why it'd be a missed opportunity if we couldn't be there. So, but yeah, there's a bit of work to be done to try and make that come to fruition.
Paddon's childhood memories of Rally New Zealand include watching Kiwi legend Possum Bourne win in Auckland.
The most vivid memory of Rally New Zealand of old, away from the competing, of course we used to drive in the early years as well, but as a young kid watching it, that's seeing the world's best teams and cars and drivers on our home turf was always an amazing feeling, and I just always remember that one night. That was a Thursday night in Manukau in the pouring rain, and he pulled a blinder and the crowd went nuts, and if we had that opportunity to do that in front of our home crowd, that'd be a dream come true for me.
Paddon's father Chris's love of rally rubbed off on his son, and Paddon believes having the WRC back on New Zealand shores for the first time in 8 years will inspire another generation of drivers.
When you're a kid and you see these cars and these drivers do what they do on the roads, it is, you do watch in awe, and if kids can come along and watch it, it's going to help the sport in New Zealand. The sport's going to grow, more people want to get involved. As a kid, to be honest, I wouldn't be where I am today without Rally New Zealand, because I was brought into it by my father, but before my father there was no one involved in the sport, and he got hooked on the sport when he came to Rally New Zealand in the 80s and saw the Group B cars. He got absolutely hooked, went home, started driving himself, and if he didn't do that, then I would have never gone rallying. So it's amazing the impact the world-class event can have on people's futures.
The last time New Zealand hosted the WRC in 2012, Frenchman Sébastien Loeb claimed his third victory on New Zealand roads. Loeb, who races for Hyundai, could contest the 2020 event alongside 100 entrants from WRC and the New Zealand Rally Championship drivers. For Checkpoint, Felicity Reid.
To the US now, and thousands of armed gun rights activists have filled the streets around Virginia's Capitol building to protest against tighter gun laws. Despite fears the event would turn violent, the crowd remained mostly peaceful. Yahaira Yaqueres reports.
Richmond, Virginia on high alert Monday as thousands of armed gun rights activists gathered around the state's Capitol building to protest gun control legislation. Ahead of the rally, Governor Ralph Northam banned carrying weapons onto the Capitol grounds. Demonstrators could be seen openly carrying rifles outside the perimeter, with some dressed in camouflage and body armor amid heavy security, as authorities aim to prevent a replay of the violence that took place at a demonstration by white nationalists in Charlottesville 3 years ago.
Well, we came up here from Texas because we understand that if Ralph Blackface Northam is able to take away the constitutional rights of the people of Virginia, it's going to sweep the nation like a wildfire. It's an American issue.
Rally goers are protesting a package of gun control measures making their way through the state legislature after Democrats won control of both chambers in November, and as the Democratic governor vows to push for tighter gun regulations. President Donald Trump weighed in on the protests in a tweet, saying Democrats in Virginia are working hard to take away your Second Amendment rights. Some protesters at the rally waved flags with messages of support for the president. Monday's event comes after the FBI last week arrested 3 members of a neo-Nazi group who authorities said had discussed traveling to the rally and planned to start a race war.
The first Pan-African art exhibition to tour the continent is hoping to break down geographic borders and redraw the map of contemporary African art under the motto Africa for Africans by Africans. Angela Ukormadu reports.
In the middle of Lend Me Your Dream, the first Pan-African art exhibition to tour the continent, sits a large canoe burned and cut in two. On top are 2 chairs facing each other. The sculpture by Ivorian artist Coco B is a brutal reminder of the African migrants who have drowned trying to cross the Mediterranean. But B says it's also about strength.
You see, it's like Morocco. Over there, it's Europe. You're as strong as the one over there.
Africa's position and identity is at the heart of this showcase. Organizers say the theme is to break down geographic borders and redraw the map of contemporary African art under the motto Africa for Africans by Africans. More than 100 works by 28 artists are touring 6 countries on the continent, starting in Casablanca and ending in Cape Town, and currently on display in Dakar's Museum of Black Civilizations. Celebrated Senegalese artist Soli Cissé is one of these featured, with paintings such as Couples Trusts.
J'ai l'habitude aussi également de laisser vierge.
I have the habit of leaving this part blank. I don't touch it, the canvas. I leave it as it is, you see. This is to also show that we're passengers, that we pass by, that we leave our footprints, and then afterwards the work can go on its path.
That sentiment is also true of this showcase. In each city it visits, more pieces are added, increasing the amount of art that can be enjoyed.
So it is a journey that we are doing together. That is the dream, actually. We are all going to travel together, discover other worlds, and then discover other members of the public.
While some works are more abstract, others tackle issues like legacy of colonialism, as in Burkinabe artist Ki Suriki's sculpture, Africa Facing Its Destiny. But they all have something in common. Descriptions next to their work do not mention the artist's country of origin, encouraging the viewer to see the art in a continental rather than national context.
And that's all we've got time for this evening. Join the First Up crew at 5 tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow evening.
RNZ News headlines at 6:30. The police on the East Coast say more arrests are likely to follow the 2 made so far over separate shooting incidents in Ruatoria and in Taradale at the weekend. 20 people have been injured, 2 of them seriously, when a bus carrying international tourists rolled on the Glenorchy-Queenstown Road this afternoon.